iOS 15 has finally been unveiled at Apple's WWDC conference. So what's coming in iOS 15 this September?
Kate, what have you been excited about in the iOS 15 announcements?
Well, there's quite a lot to be excited about, actually. It's quite a big change for user privacy again. With iOS 14, obviously, we saw some big changes for Apple users in terms of more transparency over app tracking, for example, and the app privacy labels, which detail which data apps collect. Now, iOS 15 is going to build on that further. The first thing, which is quite a big update for user privacy, is a privacy menu, which is going to list all the apps that are collecting various data with various permissions and how often they're accessing those permissions. That's particularly interesting because, say, if an app is using your camera, you'll be able to see exactly when it was using the camera and how many times, and either revoke that permission or even delete the app if you find it particularly infringing.
This is a continuation, right? We're talking about it this week, a continuation of the privacy battle that's been taking place for some time. And I think, we've discussed on SDC before the philosophies at play here, and Apple, seeing privacy as a USP, as a way to differentiate its products and its services. In some ways, what it's talking about now for iOS 15 takes it to a different level, right? I mean, as annoyed as other big tech players are out there, they're going to be more annoyed. I guess one of the questions is going to be, are we going to see what we saw with 14 and 14.5, where some of the goodies, they're talking about them now, but they're not coming anytime soon, and we won't see them in September, and they'll be in a future release and stuff. And I guess that's going to be the big main. How much do you actually get your hands on in the fall, and how much are you going to have to wait for?
Yeah, that's really true, actually. Is Apple going to do this as a big bang launch where all these features suddenly come out? Because this year, I mean, things have even been coming out like up to a month ago. We saw the biggest feature, arguably, which was app tracking transparency. These little pop-up boxes we're seeing asking whether the app can track us. So we don't know if this is going to happen in September. It could be in March 2022. That seems absolutely ages away, and that's a very good point, Zach, as well. One of the other things to talk about that's happening in iOS 15 is something that's really major in terms of email marketers that, Zach, I think you've spoken about in your stories before. It's a bugbear to all of us, this pixel tracking. Basically, when a marketer sends an email, they're able to see often when the person opened it, whether they opened it or not, the time they opened it, the IP address of that person. Very infringing practice. Now, Apple is now bringing in a privacy change that means that this will be blocked. So those email marketers won't be able to see that information anymore. Massive impact for privacy, but also a massive impact on advertisers too.
Yeah, this is, as you know, something I've looked at a few times, and it's really interesting because I've described it as almost an Apple loophole. It's always been a surprise that this and a couple of other things have escaped the Apple privacy net, but it's now closing that up. What's quite funny, and whether it was done deliberately or not, is there was a lot of chatter in the marketing world going back around the time 14.5 was being much talked about, that this will push marketeers much more into direct email marketing because they can still track IP locations and times of day and whether people have engaged or not. And it's a huge, send out a newsletter or an advertising email, it's a huge thing in terms of what is your engagement with that. And the fact that Apple has waited and now it was surprised, there was no real premise. I mean, people talk about there were some hints this might be coming down the track, but certainly not in the public domain. No one really expected this. So it's, this is going to send another shockwave through the marketing industry.
Actually, on the security side of things, it's worth mentioning in iOS 15 that's coming is, at the moment, if you want to authenticate a various apps, say your PayPal app, Apple has a functionality that means that the code, the unique code that you're sent by SMS, in this case, will copy onto the actual page. So basically, it's done in a very private and secure way, and it means that it's easier for you to use as a user. Now, what a lot of people have been asking for is a Apple's own authenticator app, because as we know, SMS authentication, two-factor authentication, is not very secure as a form of authentication. We'd rather use an authenticator app. At the moment, when we get those authentication codes in, we actually have to manually type them in through our Authy or whichever authenticator app we're using at the time. What Apple's changing about that is it's actually got its own app that's coming in iOS 15, which is really exciting because it's easy to use and it's secure. So that's what we need.
And whether it's the on-device processing, it's email blocking, it's private relay, what we're seeing is a continuation, aren't we, of this theme, which is your privacy and your security is being better safeguarded on Apple's ecosystem. Fact, the compromises that you might need to make in order to take advantage of that, we can discuss at length. But I think the clear blue water between Apple and others is clearer and bluer than it's ever been before with the news coming out on iOS 15.
Absolutely. In addition to iOS 15 announcements at WWDC, we saw some separate privacy announcements from Apple which relate to Safari. So if you use Safari on your iPhone, this will affect you as well. iCloud Plus is basically available to users who pay for iCloud currently, whatever contract that you're on. If you pay for that, you get this. There are two major aspects as part of that. The first one is essentially a VPN service. So Apple is making your data more secure and more private as you use its browser, Safari. So that's another plus. In addition to that, there is something where Apple will give you a fake email address when you sign up to a website. So quite similar to sign in with Apple actually. And that means that your email address will be hidden when you sign up for these websites. And if the website were to be hacked, for example, it would be less easy to get hold of your actual email address because Apple will make up a fake email address for you, yet you'll still receive the emails that will be forwarded from that website, which you can of course cancel if you end up being subscribed to anything you don't want to be. It's just your email address won't be out there and it won't be so easily collected.